When it comes to understand the ransomware, everybody's talking about the post-ransomware scenarios, like what will happen when we experience a ransomware attack. That's good. We should definitely do those tabletop exercises. We should definitely think about the backups, how quickly we can recover from a backup, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to supply chain, you cannot guarantee that all your vendors are doing tabletop exercises. All your vendors, they have backup resources they can recover very quickly. Even for our own organization, it's a very difficult, practice. So we need to look into the indicators, and we can convert that indicators into intelligence so that we can understand the weak spots in our supply chain, so that we can communicate with those vendors and improve those weak spots and make it a stronger supply chain for us. And that's why 4 years ago we developed Ransomware Susceptibility Index. It's an index between 0 and 1. And if it is close to 1, that means that they are more susceptible to ransomware. And the Ransomware Susceptibility Index measures, it is based on two things. One is the technical indicators. What are these, signals that the companies send to ransomware groups and they become more visible to them, like certain vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, stealer logs, exposed remote ports, and so on and so forth. Those are all the technical indicators we take into consideration. But there are also intrinsic risk factors, like the industry classification, geographic location, company size. We know the mindset of these ransomware groups, how they target these companies. As I showed you, like 50% of the victims are in the United States. So, or manufacturing is number one. A manufacturing company in the United States is more likely to experience a ransomware attack than an agricultural company in Malaysia, for instance. So these are the factors that we are getting into the Ransomware Susceptibility Index. And I'm proud to be one of the co-inventors of that metric, and every year we go through this metric and we calibrate this metric, and I will talk about that calibration piece with my team, Bright team, and we provide these detailed reports to our customers so they can assess their vendors. The vendors can look into their ransomware susceptibility assessment. They can get directly into the findings, technical findings that they need to fix to get away from being visible to ransomware groups. And the other thing is that, we also provide the trend in this Ransomware Susceptibility Index. Now, every year we assess the power of our SI, how powerful our metric is when we compare it to real victims. So what we usually do is that we look into all these, ransomware victims and their RSI values before the ransomware incident. And we also look into 250,000 non-victims and their RSI values around the same time, and compare that with different RSI ranges. And when we do that comparison, what we see is that if a company has an RSI value between 0.8 and above, 47.3% of those companies, they experience a ransomware attack. It's almost 50%. And it's a very important metric, because think about this. In general, all around the world, there are about 7,000 to 10,000 ransomware victims, successful attacks. We show the 6,000 that are disclosed by the ransomware groups. There are also ransomware victims that are not disclosed by these ransomware groups, but we know the ratio. That's why I say it's about 10,000. But there are millions of companies all around the world. When you look into that ratio, you can think that it's a rare event, and in fact, it's a rare event. Insurance companies classify ransomware as a rare event. But if a company has enough indicators, if a company is a juicy target for ransomware groups, if it is in the right industry, right annual revenue, right country, then that rare event becomes a 50-50 event. 50% of the companies with a high RSI value, they experience a ransomware attack. That's a huge ratio. 8.7% experience a ransomware attack for the companies that have RSI value between 0.6 and 0.8. For RSI value between 0.4 and 0.6, almost 6% they experience a ransomware attack. So this shows an important correlation. And when we convert that correlation into likelihood, we have these numbers. What we see is that if a company has an RSI value above 0.8, that company is 96 times more likely to experience a ransomware attack than the companies with an RSI value below 0.2. Let me repeat that. If a company has an RSI value above 0.8, that company is 96 times more likely to experience a ransomware attack than the companies with an RSI value below 0.2. And you can see other numbers here. And that shows the real power behind RSI. Last year, this number was 27x, but it is 96x this year, because every year we calibrate that. Before this study, around mid-2023, we calibrated our RSI by adding Stellar logs, by adding the sub-industries. We changed the annual revenue targets based on our estimation, our prediction around the target, these ransomware groups and how they target these companies. We take geopolitical situations, cases into consideration, and so on and so forth. And we made RSI more powerful. Now we see that for this dark red region, the companies are 96 times more likely to experience a ransomware attack than the companies in this dark green region. And that's why we always recommend our customers, if you see any vendors that has an RSI value above 0.4, you need to take a closer look, because that company is 11 times more likely to experience a ransomware attack than the other companies, or it is if it is in the orange region, which is 17 times more likely, and so on and so forth. And it's not just this threshold. They should also look into the change. The change also matters. When you look into the RSI trend, we looked into different numbers. For the 6 months prior to the ransomware incident, we checked the spikes in the RSI. And what we see is that 88% of the companies, they see at least a 10% spike for this 6-month window. 92% of them experience at least a 5% spike, between consecutive months for the same time window. So checking these, trends is also very important. So we put 2 examples here. These are real victims, their real RSI values. And you can see, let me start from the right. This company, they experienced a ransomware attack in March. And you can see that in February, they had an RSI value of 0.655. And you can see that in time they were in green, but they start to become more visible to ransomware groups in February. They were in the red region and they experienced a ransomware attack. The victim on the left, they were already in the radar of the ransomware groups. That's what the Ransomware Susceptibility Index measures. It measures the likelihood of being in the radar of the ransomware groups. It's not a prediction tool. It's a scientific tool. It's a statistical tool that shows the likelihood of being in the radar of the ransomware groups. And this company was in the radar for a long time. In February, their RSI was 0.708, and they experienced a ransomware attack in March. So, and we have lots of examples like that. That's why, we can confidently say that RSI is the most powerful metric that we have. And the reason that we can increase the powerfulness of these RSI is we calibrate RSI every year, once in a year, based on the shifting landscape. This year, recently, we also adjusted the RSI based on the industrial levels. We can see that like healthcare goes up, finance goes down, and so on and so forth. And based on our estimation for the next year, we did adjustment over there. We did adjustment on the country. We did adjustment on the revenue sensitivity. And that's how we keep RSI a powerful metric. I forgot one thing that I need to mention. Some can argue that, hey, if you keep giving high RSIs to companies, at the end you might end up with these, almost 50%, because you are giving high RSI values to everybody, and when they are hit, you can say that, hey, they already had a high RSI. That's not the case, because only, let me show you this. I'm looking for that number. Yes, only 0.82% of all the monitored companies, I'm talking about, all the hundreds of thousands of companies monitored in the Black Kite platform, had scores greater than 0.8. So we do not, give high RSI values to everybody to get this prediction. No, it's not an inflated number. It's a highly selective by design. That's why RSI works for our customers.